Welcome to Pesto Comics Audio Edition. This is the entry for February 19th, 2024. Round 2 from Parts Unknown. The first, Issue 2 by Pesto Comics, launches today. Welcome back. It's launch day. It's a very interesting time in my nascent crowdfunding career. In my previous campaigns, I was limited to having only one campaign at a time until it was completely fulfilled. Now, as a creator in good standing with more than 4 successful campaigns completely fulfilled, I can have up to 5 at a time with pending orders. My goal is to never let it get too out of hand. Right now, Big Smoke Pulp, with prints in production and digitally delivered, and Naked Kaiju Woman, with funds that just cleared and the printers currently engaged, are pending fulfillment. Even with those 2 campaigns, I've run into a couple snags. It's Murphy's Law. If things can go wrong, they will go wrong. My intent was to get Big Smoke Pulp in everyone's hands a month ago. There have been a couple mistakes on my end that led to delays. First is adding a thank you page, which then caused the delay of having to collect names via survey. Not everyone seems to care about getting the books out as quickly as I do. Second is that when all that was finally settled, and I thought I was ready to go with the printer itself had an issue with the paper format. There were some changes required with the artwork and all of the interior pages. Nonetheless, that book will be in backers' hands very soon, as I expect to receive the prints in my hands next week. Naked Kaiju Woman should be a lot smoother. I'm dealing with a local printer that did a great job on From Parts Unknown #1, and I feel a lot more comfortable fulfilling comics in general. All of this to say, I'm very excited for what I have to share with you today. It's the first issue #2 for a series by Pesto Comics, even though this will be our 7th Kickstarter campaign. The first one did well, but I'm hoping we can build on the success of Naked Kaiju Woman and From Parts Unknown #1 to make issue 2 a smashing success. If you haven't checked it out yet, please go to Kickstarter and search up From Parts Unknown #2. And now let's get into it. Letting the cat out of the bag. A warning, there's spoilers. If you want to keep issue 1 unspoiled, skip to the next section. I'll get into this concept in a broader sense next week, but the biggest challenge I had with selling From Parts Unknown #1 was that I couldn't actually tell people what it was about without spoiling the final pages of the first issue. I really wanted that to remain a surprise. It's the first act in a larger story, and now that it's out there, there's no harm in letting people know exactly what it's about. Pro wrestling vampires. I was being very quiet about it with issue 1, usually saying that there's something mysterious happening, and Bruno and Pietro would have to fight for their lives to escape. I wasn't saying what the threat was, nor do the first few pages of issue 1. I wanted everyone to get to know the trio of Bruno, Pietro, and Cindy before diving into the undead of it all. I made sure that issue 1 picks up with some wild fighting scenes and tension-filled introductions. And now that the true conflict is out there, things really do start to pick up. Not getting ahead of ourselves. This is issue 2 of a 5-issue series. Although a lot of readers like to wait for the trade, serializing the book is the only way this is feasible as an independent creator. And making sure the artists involved, Daniel and JP, get paid. Personally, I would love to release everything as a slick 120-page graphic novel, but it wouldn't reach nearly the same audience with a one-off campaign. The trick with Kickstarter growth is to have something available more often than not. The best way to do that is to serialize the book. Fortunately, the Kickstarter community is very supportive of this method of releasing books. We're doing our part in making sure the entire book is ready and available to come out on a clear timeline. Shouldn't I just wait for issue 5? You can certainly do that, but there's always going to be things that are exclusive to each campaign. Not to mention, the best time to get variant covers for each issue are going to be during the live campaign itself. I always make sure to overprint the main cover, but the variant covers are a limited amount. I print just enough so I have some for tables and a handful of future campaigns. Once they sell out, they sell out. If there's one that catches your eye, the campaign is the time to grab it. What makes issue 2 special? We've got a new variant cover artist on board, Francesco Sala. He's providing not just 1, but 2 variant covers this time out. He offered so many unique and different options that I didn't feel it was right to hide those from the world. Not just that, we also have the excellent main cover from interior artist Daniel Caval and colorist JP Jordan. Beyond the covers, on the inside pages, The story truly ramps up as Bruno has to live with what he's done at the end of issue 1. He tries to convince Pietro to leave what is sure to be a packed house. It isn't as easy as you would think. Cindy also seems to be motivated to convince them to stay, but it's unclear why. Outside the building, the mystery deepens with the sheriff as he tries to calm the ornery crowd. They know what happens to their town every time this show is put on, and they want the sheriff to stop it. So why won't he? And referee Ted knows a lot more than he's letting on. We finally get to the ring with one last surprise leading into issue 3, which will be hitting Kickstarter shortly after issue 2 releases. What's available this campaign? Here's a quick walkthrough of everything you can get your hands on. I always like to provide a tier for folks that want to support but don't necessarily care to read the comic. In the past, I've offered a grab bag including all kinds of extras from previous campaigns. I've decided to step it up this time. Instead of campaign leftovers, I'll be creating something entirely new. With the success of the enamel pin from Naked Kaiju Woman, we'll have a new pin for From Parts Unknown. This tier doesn't come with the comic, but if you still want the pin, it'll be available as an add-on with any of the comic rewards levels. For digital supporters, we have the usual DRM-free digital tier. And for those of you that missed issue 1, we have a catch-up digital bundle that includes both issues 1 and 2. If you want the comic in your hands, the main cover by Daniel Caval and JP Jordan is our entry tier. Of course, this includes a digital copy and shipping is included. And as previously mentioned, we have our 2 variant covers by Francesco Sala. Digital copy included with those too. For those of you that prefer physical comics but didn't pick up the first issue, we have a physical catch-up tier that includes both main covers of issue 1 and issue 2, and digital copies of both. For the collectors out there, you can get all 3 covers plus a digital copy at a great discount. This will be the best way for you to get these covers, both in terms of cost and potential availability. For those collectors that sat out the first issue, we have the All Parts Unknown tier that comes with every cover from issue 1 and 2. For those of you that may not have been around for Pesto Comics' previous releases, or maybe you just missed the first handful of books, you can catch up digitally with the Pesto Comics digital pack. This includes every comic that we have released thus far. For those of you that need even more reading in your life, we have the Pesto Comics Plus Book digital pack that includes not only all the comics we've produced, but a copy of Big Smoke Pulp Volume 1. If digital isn't your style and you want to pick up everything physically, we also have the Pesto Comics Starter Pack. This gives you the main cover for every book, plus a copy of From Parts Unknown number 2. Of course, this comes with digital copies of everything. And much like the digital starter packs did, you can also pick up the Pesto Comics Plus Book Starter Pack that includes everything in the previous tier, plus a paperback copy of Big Smoke Pulp Volume 1. And what if you're new to Pesto Comics and want to get caught up real quick? There's an easy answer to that. Pick up the Pesto Comics Pack. This includes 20 comics, every available cover of Unlimited Udo, Stay Cool, Crazy Latte Thing Called Love, Naked Kaiju Woman, and both issues of From Parts Unknown. And of course, digital copies of all of them. And if you still want that one extra piece, there's the Pesto Comics and Books Pack. It includes the previously mentioned comics and a paperback copy of Big Smoke Pulp Volume 1. It's a big box of books delivered straight to your door. Now, you may be asking, what if I live in Timbuktu? Much to my chagrin sometimes, I offer all-in shipping. What this means is what you see is what you pay. As much as it would be easier to charge after the campaign with whatever the shipping ends up being, my goal is just to get this comic in the hands of as many people as humanly possible, even if it's sometimes at my expense. More importantly, this is a special thing I only do for those that support during a Kickstarter campaign. If you pick up these comics after the fact at my website or elsewhere, I do not include shipping. Getting these books during a Kickstarter campaign is always going to be your best deal possible. When can I expect everything? Issue 2 is ready for print. So is Issue 3. Issue 4 is being colored, and Issue 5 is being inked. That means that Issue 2 has been done for a while yet. When the funds clear, this book is going straight to print and getting out to backers. You won't be waiting very long. Nor will you be waiting very long for the campaign for number 3 to launch, so you aren't left waiting for a resolution to the cliffhanger. For those that don't like comics, wrestling, vampires, or otherwise, And if you don't want to get a pin or support the campaign at all, you can always share it with your friends. Let people know that something cool is happening with Pesto Comics. I always appreciate that. Any support is great support, and it means a lot. Next week, we'll talk about how hard it is to sell a comic when you can't really talk about what it is and why just spoiling it anyway is a huge cop-out. See Captain America, Brave New World. I swear, I won't just talk about wrestling for the next few months. It's going to be all kinds of topics as usual. Right now, there are posts planned from today through October 1st, with campaigns planned from now through mid-2026. I'll talk about this in another post that we'll cover on March 12th. As always, I appreciate you reading, listening, or both. We'll talk again next week. Until then, coming up on the Substack, February 26th, Selling Without Spoiling. But what if the best part is a spoiler? And March 5th, Fun with Fulfillment, Big Smoke Pulp Volume 1. Part 2 of the Big Smoke Pulp Volume 1 Postmortem. And March 12th, Don't Waste the Daylight. You've lost an hour, don't waste the rest. And talking about upcoming appearances. So, this Friday we find out whether I get a table at TCAF or if I'm just going to be milling about as the regular folk do. I'll definitely be going one way or the other, but here's hoping I can land a table as it's going to be at the Mattamy Athletic Center this year. It's going to be really cool. I applied for a spot on the ice, so we'll see if that happens. And then Fan Expo Canada, still waiting for a word back to see if we're getting a table there. Toronto Comic Con, it looks like I'll very likely be going there on the Sunday, if any day. That's March 16th. We'll see how that all goes. I have my tickets for the Toronto Indie Author Conference, so I'll be there in the morning for the first set on Saturday, and I'll be there all day Sunday. I do have some other commitments in the afternoon on Saturday, unfortunately, but that should be a lot of fun. And it sounds like there's going to be a little bit of an after-party thing on the Sunday, so I'll see if I can make it to that as well. That is the week of April 26th and 27th. And, of course, there's New York Comic Con. We'll see what happens. I did make sure to register, so when tickets become available, hopefully I'll get that email, and I'll be able to land some tickets to end up at New York Comic Con. But other than that, I do have a couple other cons on my radar for this year. I'll be sharing those and updating this list once I have a good sense of what's happening with those and whether or not I'll be showing up there. And the Pesto Comics release calendar. So there's so much on this calendar that it's not something I'm going to list out, as it will make this podcast twice as long. So I highly recommend that if you are interested in seeing what is coming out when, please go to the Substack page, scroll all the way to the bottom. I've already made a couple of changes here, so those of you who are really paying attention will see that a couple projects have shifted around. One really important one is it looks like I'm rethinking Big Smoke Pulp Volume 2 in the sense of how it's going to be released. I share a lot more about that in the future, but right now, that leaves space for a new project coming in November. It's something that I'm working with a new artist on. We'll see how that all plays out. We're still in the negotiation phase, so we'll see if it actually goes through, but that could be really fun. It'll be another one-shot, so instead of a series, we'll get a bit of a break from the serialization or the sequelization of these series I've been doing. It'll just be one really cool story. I think it'll be a lot of fun. And as always, I leave it open that I could sequelize it if I really wanted to, but right now it's planned just to be a one-shot, and it should be a lot of fun. And on the Instant Ink Comic Book Podcast, we have James Edward Clark. I'm a big fan of James. He's got some really cool comics out there. He's an artist that has a style that's so unique and so his own, and a really interesting mind in how he thinks about all of it. And you really get that insight in these episodes of the Instant Ink Comic Book Podcast. I highly recommend giving him a follow on Instagram. He will keep you very busy. He's on there all the time. You'll find some of the most interesting memes in his stories and that, but his artwork is what you're really there for. So check out his Instagram. It's James_Edward_Clark on Instagram. You won't find him anywhere else, but he really does put his time in on there. And really what he's putting his time in is on the amazing art that he puts together. So I highly recommend giving him a follow. And with that, it's the end of another week. It's launch day. I'm recording this on a Tuesday, and if I'm being entirely honest, I'm a little more nervous about this one, which is strange. I wasn't nervous about the last 2 or 3 campaigns that I've put up. I think the high bar that was set by Naked Kaiju Woman is stressing me out a bit, because even just looking at the pre-launch, we're at about 65 followers as of this moment. Naked Kaiju Woman was near 200 when I hit the launch button. Obviously, The prospects for this one, not as high as that campaign, but that campaign was a world beater. It beat all kinds of records, so I'm not surprised that I'm not going to hit those exact same heights. But still, the goal is to fund and beyond, so at least we can cover the costs and I could keep paying JP and Daniel to do all this. It's a little harder with just an issue 2 of a serialized story. The hope is that as time goes on, more and more people jump onto this campaign, and by the time we're at issue 5 and people can get the whole story, we're at those really high heights, right? But it is what it is, and really hoping that people do enjoy the story that is being put together. Again, with a serialized story, you're selling Act 1 when you're doing the first couple issues, and it's not as bombastic and crazy as the later issues end up being. These campaigns do build on each other and snowball over time. So I'm feeling good about it. I'm just not feeling the same lack of stress, lack of anxiety that I get. Usually I'm very good about just hitting the button and letting things happen. This one I'm feeling like I need to maybe push it a little more. All that said, this is just issue 2 of 5. The next one is launching on April 8th. So there's a very quick turnaround from when this campaign ends and the next one launches. And then issue 4 comes out on the 14th of May. So this will be done by the end of August. Everybody will have books in their hands. They'll have the whole story. And then we get to focus on some other projects. And then at least by then, I'll know where this all stands. But with issue 2, issue 1 didn't perform nearly as well as I had hoped. It did well. Like, it surpassed the goal. It doubled it. But, like, Naked Kaiju Woman blew everything out of the water. It did 1,000 times the goal, which is incredible. I don't know that we'll see even anything close to the same with From Parts Unknown issue 2 of 5. Here I am. Anyways, I'm rambling. My point is, I'm really excited to finally get this launched. I'm sure I'll feel a lot better by the time this email is out because I'll have a good sense of how it's catching on and where we might end up at the end of the campaign. If you really want to make me feel better, you can either back the campaign, but again, I understand everybody's in different positions, so if you can't back it, even just showing your support by letting people know that it's out there and getting the word out, it honestly means the world because it means that I get to keep doing these crazy projects for all of you, and I'm very excited to keep doing that as much as humanly possible. Again, if you look at the release calendar, From Parts Unknown is a part of it, but we have all kinds of fun projects coming out, not just comics too. I'm working on a bunch of novellas and novels and all kinds of things with some editors out there, and it's going to be a lot of fun. I can't wait. I can't wait for everybody to see all of the projects that are coming out this year, and I'll be sharing a lot more of that in the near future. But for now, I'll let you go. Once again, I thank you for all the support. We'll talk again next week. Have a good one.